whether the old test was still correct or wrongly decided. Parts from the
President of LSSA. And then we've got the President of NADEL, Mr. Mashini Mutlou, who's also part of the panel. I thought I'll introduce first as we start, because this is our day one, so that we can explain where we come from. So those are the panel members that have been appointed by the President to assist. Subsequent to the appointment of the panel, various steps have been taken. We made a call for applications on the 19th of October, which firstly closed on the 7th. Then we said to go through the process, and we had to extend. We've done pre-screening, and I want to say, because I see quite a number of people are saying we have shortlisted. This is today the process of shortlisting. We have not shortlisted. What we did as a panel was to check suitability of the candidates meeting the minimum requirements in terms of what is required. And what we had requested was that for the candidates, either they submit their application or they are nominated. And when they are nominated, they must accept the nomination and submit with all the detail. After the final closing on the 24th of November, because after the 17th, maybe just to go back, on the 17th, then we had to write to Legal Practice Council, because at that time, after the receiving of all the closed submissions, we only had 6 people that met the minimum requirements. We wrote to Legal Practice Council to invite them for legal bodies to nominate, or for people to apply, recirculate the ad, and then it closed on the 24th of November. With that, still, those additional did not meet any minimum requirements. Again, to clarify, this is as per the NPA Act in terms of the people who are fit to be NDPP, but also as the panel looking at the organization, which is the National Prosecuting Authority, its footprint across the country. I felt that you can't have a person coming to lead such an institution, maybe with 1 year experience as a manager. And that's why the management level of experience at executive level was 10 years in terms of that. So after the closing, only 6 still met the minimum requirement. So it's not shortlisting. We didn't have anything to shortlist, but also we are cognizant that we are not the appointing body. That's why we can't shortlist. The appointing body or the appointing person legally is the President. So our job is to find a shortlisted process that then makes a recommendation of shortlisted names to the President. So the process that we are embarking, even these interviews, are not interviews of shortlisted bodies or people. It's people who meet minimum requirements that would shortlist after this. So I thought that is quite important. But as well, we have, as the panel, decided that we will issue a public process for candidates who have been finalized, met the minimum requirements, the 6. We published them both in our website as the Department of Justice, but also in media platforms, including newspapers, where we publish their names and their CVs. And the closing date for public comments was the 5th of November, which then, out of that process, we got 281 comments. And maybe just as part of transparent, general comments about the process, about even suggested questions for the panel, were 8. Advocate Bell got 8 comments. Advocate Khronye got 9 comments. Advocate Johnson got 209 comments. Advocate Kanyile got 8 comments. Advocate Mop got 5 comments. Advocate Simelani got 28 comments. So it comes to 281. So the individuals today, and I'll go into the process of how we are going to conduct this process after just outlining where we come from, leading to where we are today with the 6 candidates that we're looking at shortlisting. Part of the process, as well as the panel, we developed a questionnaire that we sent to the candidates. Then the candidates had to fill that questionnaire. As part of the process, I will take the candidates through that questionnaire, verifying information, getting them to explain throughout that process. The second part of the process of today and tomorrow will be questions from members of the panel that will be posed to the candidate, and the candidate will respond. With the public comments, what we have done, we compiled all those public comments and sent them to the candidates for the candidates to give us written responses. And when they come here again, a member of the panel will lead in taking the candidate through those public comments, verifying their responses. It will be in summary. It won't be as detailed as you know, as you have heard Advocate Johnson got about 209. So it will be summary of the comments that have been. Each member of the panel will lead each individual candidate in those public comments to say, this is what the public have said, this is what your written comments, and also will ask questions based on that as the panel. And that will conclude the process of this interviewing process. When we finish with all of them, the panel will then reflect who amongst these candidates meets the requirements to be shortlisted and their names forwarded to the president. For president to apply his mind and be able to indicate and take the decision, the process forward. And that's what I thought I should explain in terms of the process, where we come from to today and tomorrow with the candidates. We are going to take 3 candidates today, which is Advocate Bell, Advocate Mop, and Advocate Johnson. And the 3 other candidates, Advocate Kanyile, Advocate Kronye, and Advocate Simelani, will be taken tomorrow, not today. So that's the process that I wanted to attend to. Then the second area I want to deal with, we have received a letter with intention to interdict the process. This letter comes from, where's the letter now? Okay, I put it somewhere. It's coming from Minde, Shabira, and Smith attorneys on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, of threatening to go to court urgently. The letter is dated the 7th, but was received by us as the panel today, so we had to reflect on it. I will not go into detail because we do believe that this is self-inflicted agency, but also there are no merit on it because we have not shortlisted. So the lawyers will respond to the attorneys and the DA. And I must indicate amongst the comments we received out of the 201 that I've mentioned that closed on the 5th, Democratic Alliance did not submit any public comments in this process that we have received. So the letter has been received. It's a letter that threatens to go to court. We have instructed our attorneys, our legal team, to respond to the letter, and should their urgent application be brought forward, to respond to it. We do feel that there is no need to halt the process as the panel. There is no basis, and therefore the letter as sent is actually misguided, but we'll respond to it legally with the teams. So that's the process we want to explain in terms of what we have in front of us and how we are going to handle the process. I thought, let's start that process, take members of the public and media on how we're going to run the process and what is expected and how we're going to deal with the process. So thank you very much for that. I think I'll allow the panel to settle for about 2 minutes before we take the first candidate to come through. If the members can start assisting Secretariat, if can assist in getting us the person through. Members. Good morning, Advocate Bell.
Good morning, Minister.
How are you?
Panel members, I am very well, thank you.
I'm okay. We're starting with you and we're going to proceed. I'm sure you're familiar with the panel members. Okay, thank you very much. I will not waste time with introducing them because I've done that already. Just to explain to you in terms of the process, we've sent you a questionnaire which you had to complete. I'll take you through that questionnaire. And then when I'm done, members, or even in between, because it's an interactive session, if there's a follow-up, any member of the panel will come through. And then after that, we'll have a question session that we engage beyond the questionnaire. And then lastly, you would have received the public comments that relates to you specifically and your response. So with that regards, let me just see who's the allocated member. Ms. Maluleke, the HESA, will take you through your public comments. She'll be the lead person in that area of your public comments.
Thank you, Minister. Before we proceed, when I went through the questionnaire, I noticed one mistake.
Okay.
I was appointed on 1 May 1995. I'm very proud of that because that is Workers' Day and not 1 March. Apologies for
Or 1 May 1995 on your process of appointment. Okay, that is noted. Thank you very much. And Workers' Day. Okay, thank you. Just to start, you had to sign the form as well, and I'll take you through. So we've got section 1 that deals with your personal details, and that was where I was going to come to say all this information is accurate as per your form. You can confirm and all that. I won't go into that one, but going into, take us through your qualifications, why they are relevant for you to be an NDPP. Switch on the mic as well.
my tertiary education. I've got BA Law, LLB, and LLM. LLM specializing in labor law and commercial law. Why I've got the qualifications? I don't only have the qualifications, but I've got the practical experience in applying the knowledge that I gained at tertiary level. Why I specialized in labor law? I was always fascinated in how we treat employees, fairness, and in commercial law, it was challenging at varsity, and I wanted to prove myself that I am better than that qualification. I studied at part-time LLB through UNISA, while I was a senior state advocate in the Director Public Prosecutions Johannesburg office. So at the time, it was challenging to be in court every day and to study subjects that you're not dealing with on a daily basis. But knowledge is power, and that knowledge has come in very helpful in my career as it expanded. I studied LLB and BA Law at the University of the Western Cape. It was challenging days, but I learned a lot of practical experience. I deliberately chose Western Cape because I grew up here in Gauteng, very sheltered environment where everybody knows you in a close-knit community. So I wanted to experience freedom, what it means to change the era that we were in the early 90s, to be independent and yet contribute to where we were in the country. Then the LLM, that was through UNISA that I studied.
Quite interesting as well. So link that, because you're saying to us that you also deliberately wanted to make sure that you've got the practical experience.
Yes.
And I'm seeing here, as you say, you corrected that, you've been public prosecutor from the 1st of May 1995 to 96. Then you became the state attorney, state advocate from April 1996 to 99. And then you became senior state advocate 1999 to 2000, deputy director public prosecutions 2004 to 2008, deputy director public prosecution 2008, or that one was junior, then you became a senior one until 2022, director public prosecutor acting 2020-2022, and then since 2022 to date, you've become the director of public prosecution. Do you think out of this work you've gained enough experience to be able to lead the entirety of the NPA with various divisions, the NDPPs? Like the law says, you can appoint 4 as an NDPP maximum, and all these provinces and all these offices.
Let me start with answering by where it started in my career in the era in which I was appointed. I have been in service as a prosecutor for the last 30 years, a public service, a public servant. I have seen and served through the NPA through all its many seasons of transition. When I joined the NPA, it was still the Attorney General's office. Soon thereafter, in 1998, the National Prosecuting Authority was established. Transition, great excitement. We were placed in positions as a female of color. I was fast-tracked, but I had to show that I can do the work, that I've earned my seat at the table, that I can prosecute, In those days, it was difficult. I think some of us have forgotten, if you're new, if you're a female in the institution. Many of the judiciary and council had not seen women of color being in the High Court prosecuting. So you had to earn your stripes. You didn't even have to work hard. You had to work extra hard to prove that you're up to the task. As I was sitting outside, I was thinking, I always find myself, when I move into a new position in this era of transition. And what I can say about myself and the NPA as well, we are resilient. Despite the obstacles that there is, we ensure that justice is done every day. But by looking at me, when I took the position of the director in the Western Cape, many of the senior management had retired, the support that the office had relied on for a long time. So there was an opportunity for me for growth, recruitment, recruiting people of potential, developing them, and also keeping the staff morale high. I've worked through instances where we couldn't recruit in the NPA for years. But what did we do? We used it as an opportunity. People were placed in acting positions where we could mentor them. So if the opportunities opened up, they were ready. Am I ready to serve The entire NPA, yes, I've got the benefit that I've worked in two of the largest divisions. For the last 5 years, I've been on the national management of the entire NPA. My division is huge. We deal with multiple crime types, and we rely on all our stakeholders to do the good work. Crime is high in the Western Cape, but we haven't given up hope. We're innovative every day as to how we tackle crime and instill confidence in the public. So yes, I am ready to serve. Will there be challenges? Definitely. Will I be able to overcome it? Yes, Minister, with the help of good partners and a good support team.
Thank you very much. I think the other areas will be explored as we go in. I'm just getting so that the panel and all of us get to know you. Now, going into the area of your court experience, I noted that one of the issues that we were looking at to appear, and I know that DPPs don't have to appear in court, it's optional. Is there a particular reason you just decided not to appear?
It's not a question of deciding not to appear. Litigation is my passion. That is where I prefer to be. But if you are the strategic leader in the province, you must lead, you must have vision, you must have support and provide the necessary structures. As a deputy, I was in charge of the High Court role. My predecessor, because of the portfolio, did not always want me to go to court, but I would slip in opportunities to go to court. If our advocates are not ready, if it's a particularly tricky case, then I would go to court. I am at ease in court. That is where I'm skilled in. Thank you.
Thank you. I noted earlier on you spoke about your work and passion in labor law. But the questioner as well asked you about other areas of law that you actually would say. For example, quite a lot of work as well would go into criminal law, constitutional law. Maybe take us through. You've highlighted even administrative law. Maybe just leave it open.
Yes. As a prosecutor, you don't only work with the criminal procedure law. You work with the Constitution is your Bible. You have to know procedure, you have to know civil procedure, and also administrative law. That is what governs the NPA and how we work. So yes, there's been constitutional challenges in my office where I've guided, where we've submitted affidavits, so I have experience therein. But my bulk of experience is in criminal law. But you have to have knowledge of, it's not just a one way, of how it all fits in together.
Then we're moving to the next section in terms of management experience. I noticed that you started having substantive number of employees reporting to you from 1st March 2020. The previous years, for example, you'd have had about 4 to 6 advocates reporting to you when you were deputy director, and when you were junior. When you were senior, you had about 20 maximum reporting to you. It's only in terms of 2020 that you had about 693 when you were acting and currently. Do you think this experience have given you sufficient understanding, noting that it's the Western Cape as a whole? Between 2020 and 2025 is 5 years. You've built enough experience. Maybe just take us through.
Maybe I can give context to why I've given those numbers. As a direct supervisor where you sign the performance contract with the advocate, those were 5 and more. But even as a senior state advocate in the Johannesburg office, when the national office at VGM was created, I was appointed as a senior state advocate. I had to take charge of the appeal role. There, many of the advocates report to you, where you guide them, where you enroll the matter. So you're not their direct supervisor, but you are in charge of that. Even so with when I was appointed as deputy, for most of the 20 years, I was in charge of the High Court role. So that is not just mentoring the 5 people that have signed a performance contract with me. It is training all the advocates in the division. On a daily basis, prosecutors would call you for guidance where you need to give assistance as the deputy director. So that is the content. So it's not just in the last 5 years that I've been managing people. Throughout my career, mentoring and managing others have been part of my work.
Okay, thank you. Then one of the areas you talk about is that your management skills or your style of management is primarily consultative and inclusive. And other people can argue that that type of sometimes that consultative can be something that you end up with a person who's indecisive because they're consulting forever.
I'm not going to switch off again. I'll sit on my hands. It is important to hear all the voices in the room, even the dissenting ones, for people to feel accountable and part of the decision maker. But as the leader, the final decision, the accountability lies with me. So it's inclusive, but I make the decisions. In the difficult moments, it rests on me to make those decisions. But you have to have your team on board. You have to listen to them. You have to listen to all the views. The Jocelyn Smith matter was one case in particular where it had huge reputational damage, where not everybody was convinced in my office that we had a reasonable case. Some were concerned about malicious prosecution, and they had valid arguments for it. And then there was voices that said it's community interest, it's not malicious prosecution. So I had to sit, listen to all the views, and then make the final decision. So that is what I mean by being inclusive. But the decision has to be made, and it has to be made swiftly, and you must be accountable for the decision made.
Maybe let's venture into that. I see as part of your leadership and organizational development, you are reflecting that a good leadership means being mindful, ethical, decisive, transparent, and accountable of your own decision. What does that mean as an NDPP? When a person is an NDPP, what would that transparency mean? What would be that accountability? Because the public currently cries for accountability and transparency in what is happening.
Regular accountability and transparency is being able to give explanations for your decisions, entrust the public to know what the process is, but also protecting the integrity of the investigation as well. Public relies on information. We're living in an advanced digital era where information spreads very quickly. So you need to be on the pulse of what is happening. You need to explain. Not everybody knows how the law processes work. That needs to be explained. You need to be accountable for it. And some of the decisions are going to be difficult. It's going to be unpopular. But you have to explain it, and your guidance should be the rule of law, adhering to the values that are enshrined in the Constitution.
And do you think that an NDPP should appear before Parliament, which is politicians, to account for the decisions that they have made in prosecution?
Parliament represents the people. We represent the people. We need to explain, to be accountable for the work that we do, the decisions that we are making, and the trust that has been given to us. Absolutely.
Thank you. And other members will come to some of the issues later. Let's go to the ethics area and integrity. Just to confirm, the questionnaire asked you if you've ever been suspended in your position or other previous one. Have you gone through disciplinary process? Currently, NPA, we have the ethics office. Have you been referred to that? Any of those that we need to be aware of?
I have not been referred to the ethics Office of Ethics and Accountability. But a complainant has laid a complaint with the LPC, the institution guiding the governance of practitioners, yes. That complaint was dismissed because it was based on a prosecutorial decision that I have made. I've submitted a letter from the LPC admitting or showing same.
Was it dismissed because it was lodged at the wrong place, or there were no merits?
There were no merits in it, and it was lodged at the wrong place. I checked our file. The complaint was never further pursued by the complainant.
The next area, it's around your contribution. As we know, our country is that we're looking at mostly the contribution of individuals within the society, but also in terms of the pursuit for justice. And I noted that you concluded some of the high-profile, you listed some of the high-profile trials that you've been. Do you want to share one of them that you think is significant for us to note in terms of your contribution to law and access to justice?
I believe, Minister, that all the work that I do on a daily basis contributes. But a highlight would be the Jocelyn Smith matter, although I didn't prosecute in it. It called for decisive decision-making. It impacted that community. And redressing and being victim-centric, it was important that justice be served to that community. I asked my role planner, go out with SAPS, go and try and find a venue where we can have the trial there before I approach the judge president, because circuit courts is very expensive because the entire court personnel has to move. I said, go and speak, but be mindful, we are a party to the proceeding. We can guide the High Court where to go. At one stage, the invoice for the center where the trial were to be held was in the name of my deputy. I had to intervene and ask the deputy, remind the city that it's the public that they serve. There should be no account. We're not in charge of it, but speak to the High Court, and we handed it over to the High Court to take the negotiations further. That case demonstrates that if we all work together, collaboration, justice can be victim-centric and it can be swift as well. It was also a groundbreaker because we were testing the law. We were expanding the law. A child being sold for sale and the victim not being found was a first. Yes, in matters where there was death before, we've been able to prosecute, but this was developing the law. Another one that was quite challenging in my career is a previous political figure, a minister that was charged for corruption in the High Court. He was acquitted. The judge presiding over the matter was a very senior judge. In fact, he was a former judge president of the matter. I studied the record and was of the view that all the issues were not ventilated in open court. It is not an easy decision or process to have a decision of the High Court reversed. We were able to do that because the grip of corruption on the country is rife. We need not just to show, but the merits of that case showed that we must act decisively and swiftly against the scourge of corruption in the country.
Thank you very much. As I come towards the end of the questionnaire, can I confirm that you do not hold any directorship or interest in business as listed here?
Correctly so, Minister.
And can I confirm there are no health issues that will impact on your work?
No health issues, Minister.
That concludes the questionnaire, and I'll move to commencing the second part of the interview. And my first issue there, perhaps just share with us, one of the interesting things I noticed is that in the Western Cape office, there was cross-nomination. I'm not so sure if you're aware. You had somebody that nominated you, themselves nominated, and supported within the same office. And none of the stakeholders were coming through or any. Can you share with us, was the team sitting, deciding that we're going to nominate, one of us going to make it? What had happened in that regard?
Not at all, Minister. Both the candidate, Advocate Mob, and myself were nominated by senior management.
Two more, actually. The people who nominated you actually also got nominated from your office.
Indeed, Minister. We were concerned as to the candidate, Mr. Mope, and I, as to we didn't want rivalry in the office, but because of the team that we had built, the leadership that our leadership team was fine. When I took office, was fairly new. It was transferring skills, developing, and encouraging them that we need different views, whether you're matured, older, whether you're new in the province as well. So the management team have found their voices, and they're very strong about it. And I was reminded that, and this is what I tell prosecutors as well, we are in service. Servant leadership, that is what we do. Whenever I go to prosecutors, I tell them we are the people's lawyer. We work in very difficult circumstances, but communities look up to us. So when the call came, I was reminded, you were saying that to all of us, now is the time for you to prove that servant leadership. I always saw my role.
So you guys discussed it as an office with the senior managers?
No, I didn't know. I only heard when the nomination process was already. I was approached by two senior deputies. I did not know that they had spoken to each other. I asked for an opportunity. It was a Friday afternoon to reflect on the possibility of being nominated. The Monday, I was reminded. I said to them, it is a huge responsibility. We need to support as management whoever is appointed. The Western Cape has always been vocal, have been innovative, have been challenging. So for the division to make various nominations should not surprise anybody. There's always a question, what is the Western Cape division, the senior management saying? We are, whether it's a case happening elsewhere in the country, we give support, we give advice. We see ourselves as part of the leadership of the Western Cape, of the entire country.
Thank you very much. Prof. Fikeni has a follow-up on that.
I just want to check, Advocate, if there was no moral discomfort with the discussion of cross-nominations within the office.
Between the candidates?
Yes.
Yes, there was, that it would cause division, that others might feel that they are pressurized to make the nomination as well. But the emotional intelligence that both I and the other candidate have reassured us that for us, I was concerned about the office, what happens after that. But we've put good structures in place, good processes where we hold each other accountable. So yes, I felt a little bit uncomfortable. Two of us are being nominated. It's a huge honor to be called to this interview and to be of service. And we recognize that responsibility. There was also a concern that if you don't put up your hand, who else will be? I was reminded recently in a training session that you are the leader that you're waiting for. So nobody else might answer to the call. And as we've seen with the nomination process, very few answer to the call because of how difficult and challenging this position can be. And I think both of us are acutely aware of that.
Thank you very much. I'll move to the next area. You just spoke about the challenges. Take us through what becomes your vision and what are those challenges that as the NDPP, should you be considered, you will have to face and how you're going to deal with it. What will we see of the NPA under your leadership?
The Advocate Batoy has built a foundation. And now it would be my vision or under my leadership to accelerate that. The distrust in the MPA and the services that we provide to address that is by having an ethical leadership team, by being accountable. I previously explained what accountability is, but adhering to the values as in Section 195 of the Constitution. The administration of justice based on being accountable, being professional, using resources effectively. How would that NPA look like? That NPA would be principled, would be accountable, would be ethical. Work-wise, how will it look? It will be looking at the IDEC, accelerating the work that they're doing, insulating them. They already have appointments, but to attract skilled professionals to deal with corruption. In the Glenister 2 constitutional matter, the STIRS principle was applied for an independent corruption body to be insulated. It has to be operationally and also financially independent. It has to have specialized skill, independent. The staff needs to be trained professionally. There needs to be a security of tenure. You don't want to appoint skilled persons and then you lose them through other appointments because there are better offers elsewhere. You lose that skill, you use time spent on that, and also to follow a clear prosecution plan in every matter, especially in high court, in high-profile matters, where we have a prosecutor-guided approach, applying project management principles, where you have timelines, outcomes, risks that you consider, but there needs to be an end date. You can't investigate forever, and updating the public constantly. A victim-centric approach, the scourge of gender-based violence, is not an add-on for a prosecution service. It should be at the heart of what we do on a daily basis, where we give comfort to the victim, to survivorhood, where we respond swiftly and compassionately. The work, and if we think of the Western Cape in particular, organized crime, the MPA has established an organized crime strategy. It's now fully implementing that, using the legislation that's available to POCA, racketeering, money laundering, but more importantly, taking the benefits out of crime. Asset forfeiture should be at the center of all the work that we do. Some call it disruption. I prefer to call it strategic, impactful prosecutions where it instills confidence and the community that we provide this service to feels safer. Economic development is important. How do you track investment? We've shown through the latest set of recommendations, this country is resilient. If we put all our resources together, coordinate, and deal with money laundering, terror financing, then we can attract investments, we can build the rule of law, have principled institutions that community can rely on.
Maybe just going into that as my last segment of justice. You spoke about, when you talk about the vision, and you flagged gender-based violence, organized crime, and all that. But if we look at the annual report of NPA that just been released, recently tabled before Parliament, Western Cape is one of the lowest performing on sexual offences conviction. Also sitting at 68% below the target. You look at murder rates, it's sitting with 3 other provinces below, around 76%, which is one of the issues that we are seeing in terms of organized. I think the other one, you are in almost 3 areas, Western Cape is performing at the bottom, including the infrastructure, essential infrastructure.
Yes.
And we've seen 8.1% of postponement of cases out of prosecutorial residence. Now, link that of the performance of the Western Cape with what you are saying. If we flag sexual offences, gender-based violence as one of the crises we have in the country, but we look at the performance of the Western Cape, how do we get convinced that this will not be following you to the national level?
I can assure you that it won't follow me. If we look at the latest performance of the Western Cape, it was a concern for us. We flagged essential infrastructure, murder rate, as well as sexual offences. And we looked in particular which courts are not performing and where it is that they're not performing and what interventions we can put in place. I recently, 2 months ago, met with the prosecutors in charge of sexual offences to say the number has gone up. We have reached the target. It looks like our interventions have worked, but we mustn't, the plan mustn't just be to meet the target. Justice must be felt, victims must be seeing it. So we looked at best practices. For instance, on the West Coast, there is no Tutuzela Care Center. There is, of course, no excuse for not performing. We reinforced by sending the case manager of our sexual offences and community affairs to give training, to do screening, to support the prosecutor there. Their performance has been the best since it's ever been. Everybody is now following that best practice. In our Peru court, we had a victim support room that didn't instill dignity, confidence in the process. We are interviewed, when you do cases well, by the TV producers, they come out, they ask. So we ask them, we don't want donor funding. Go to Peru court. After you've been there, then we'll speak to you again. Go help us restore dignity to those victims. Sexual offences cases are difficult by nature. Very often, the complainant wants to withdraw. But we need to ensure that that withdrawal is an informed decision, that we have taken you to the processes, you know you've been prepared by a court preparation officer. Just last month, I received, or 2 weeks ago, an email from a mother who had received services of that Peru court. She thanked the court, all the staff. She said it was the most harrowing experience what had happened to her child. But just by going to the court, having the security greeting her, taking her to that room that is so comforting, the court preparation officer preparing her and the child for what is to come, taking them to court, the guidance, the counseling that they receive, that is justice to the people. So, Minister, we are constantly improving. We are looking at the data. Essential infrastructure, in particular, when we looked, it was our Cape Town court, that area that was not successful. You start with introspection first. Do the prosecutor need training? Are we not presenting the evidence correctly? And we found multiple factors. So we sent one of the deputies out. He's given training to the officials who do the arrest, what must be in the statement. He's also taken the prosecutors to how the evidence must be led. That statistic has also improved. Murder in the Western Cape. Minister, the murder figures in the Western Cape is the highest in the country. It is a concern for myself as well as the provincial commissioner. I have dedicated an advocate, a senior in my office, to screen all murder matters, to see what we can improve and where we can improve it. The community started to complain. Witnesses are scared to testify. They are afraid. There has been several shootings at the court where people have been called, have been killed. That causes so much damage to confidence in the criminal justice system. To convince a witness to come and testify, put your life at risk. Yes, there's witness protection, and witness protection in the NPA does a sterling job. But communities are fearful. They are reluctant to testify. Just last week, for the second time in 2 months, I had to go out to Athlone Court, where I had to speak not just to the prosecutors, but to the staff that services their court, where the prosecutor had moments before the shooting happened, passed the shooter. So our people work under very difficult circumstances. It's no excuse. The following day, they had to be in court. So we have the screening murder project, and when I looked at what drives murders, what is the driver of murders in the Western Cape, it's firearms. It's whether we are addressing a possession of a firearm at the first instance properly so that it doesn't escalate to a racketeering matter. We have made good progress on that. We've got a project on firearms. The stabilization project has been established in the Western Cape to deal with murders, deal with safety at courts, and how we address gang violence.
Thank you very much, Advocate Bell. I actually wanted to check your stats over 5 years or since you've been. And if I look at the statistics, just on sexual offenses, there's been a consistent decline.
And we are concerned about it.
Yes. Yeah, there's been consistent decline. And I'm trying to understand what you gave. I would have ended. You gave as a reason that you are now intervening, and the issue of other areas not having Tutuzela centers. At the time you were appointed, sexual offences conviction rate in the Western Cape was at 80.4%. It has been dropping until we reach at 68%. Now, with this drop, these interventions over years, have you been able to do them, or it's only after the last financial report, the last annual report that you started intervening?
No,
that will be my last one, I promise.
No, Minister, I have monthly meetings with senior management where we look at the stats, where we interrogate it, where we ask what can we do to improve, why are victims withdrawing matters. So it wasn't just a quick fix to get
Okay,
this.
Bell, these ones are the ones that have gone to court. So it's conviction rate. It's not
Yes.
withdrawals. These are conviction rates.
Yes, Minister, I hear what you say. But for a witness to testify in court, it's difficult to explain to the court, to bare your soul of something intimate that has happened to you. We take the witnesses to the process. We've got court preparation officers. We've got dedicated courts that provide these services every day on a daily basis.
Okay, I've got follow-ups on the matter. Let's start, Mr. Mavundlela.
Thanks. Good morning, Advocate Bell, right?
Good morning.
Thanks. I am interested in this part in particular because recently there's been a declaration of the GBV as a real problem in South Africa. And then we are sitting with the Western Cape, as the Minister just said, probably on a sliding slope, which I'm sure we all do not want to see. And these stats that we're talking about now, it's only about the Western Cape. Can you at least find an imagination of what it would do to South Africa if that statistic is to somewhat find space into all the other areas in the country? Can you just for a moment reflect on what that would do to our fight about this thing? And also just 1 second, I'm just giving you an opportunity to explain it from where you see it, because from a strategic vision point that you're looking at from an NDPP position, you would have to then worry about this stat all over the country. And it would come in handy for the panel to understand it from your perspective. Can you at least just take me through that?
It would be devastating to the fight against gender-based violence. But also in the screening of our cases, we don't just look at whether it's a stat that would have a positive outcome. We apply the law, whether there is reasonable prospects of success, and we enroll all of that. For us, it's important that the voice of the victim is heard, that although a court might find a difficult finding, but there's reasonable prospects of success, we take you through the process, your voice is heard. Justice is not just always in the outcome. Yes, the outcome instills confidence, but it's also about being heard, about treated with dignity and humanity. That is what justice is.
Mr. Mutlu.
Thank you, Chair. Advocate Bell, out of the concerns that have been raised in as far as the declining statistics is concerned, and taking from your responses, it would appear that there is more of a reaction to the challenge that your division is facing. And if this impression is correct, then it's concerning, because at the heart of performance management, and for it to be effective, there has to be regular monitoring and evaluation of performance. And I don't see this coming from your responses, particularly taking into account that these challenges has been going on and recurring for quite a long time. And what I get from you is the interventions that were or that have been implemented. And the impression is that these interventions have been put in place recently and as a result of reacting to this challenge.
It is, thank you for the question and the opportunity. It is not just recent interventions. The statistics, especially of gender-based violence, is monitored nationally as well. So it is not just like in the last year we've given interventions. We've raised conviction rate at the regional court forum as well. And there, a presiding a regional court magistrate is chairing a forum just dealing with sexual offenses, the challenges arising. My office sits there and make inputs and interventions as well. So there's been constantly addressing us looking introspectively. Are we not dealing with the matters properly? Is it our case backlogs that take too long? So we've considered all of that in addressing it. And it's not just in the last year. We looked at capacitating those courts where there are sexual offenses, to train prosecutors better, to have experienced prosecutors that can do proper consultation with the witnesses as well.
Witnessing?
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning.
Good morning.
Just follow up on a few questions. The first one is, it's linked to gender-based violence. It's the whole issue about domestic violence. And there was one prosecutor in Wynberg that refused to withdraw cases because it comes on... Oh, put it close. Okay. Thank you, Chairperson. Yeah, it's that you. I don't know if we have to believe statistics, but Mitchell's Plain has got the highest record of domestic violence, which is linked to gender-based violence. And there was a prosecutor in the Wynberg court that has refused to withdraw cases when a person wants to come. And we see this throughout the country that, cases are withdrawn. What would your vision be? What would your view be? What would your protocol or policies be to ensure that we have, there are economic considerations why people are withdrawing it, but at least because the constant waste of money, making a case and then withdraw it, and then, it doesn't send a good message. But that's the first one. The second one is that perhaps you could explain the issue about the POCA Act, because as far as my knowledge is that the provincial government has passed a law in which is making gangsters, being a member of a gang, illegal. But I haven't seen any statistics of anybody being arrested and being sent on that. And how, if we are going to take that with you should you be successful in your leadership, take it to other areas where crime is like in the different areas. I take Motherwell in Kabeja and so on. But also the issue, and the third one is the last one from my side. You say that, you start off by saying that, crime, that is, you're passionate to combat crime, and that's where this. But the murder rates on the Cape Flats, for example, and the prosecution rates are like kind of chalk and cheese. It is like, okay, thanks. It's like chalk and cheese. Just thumb statistics is like anything from Nyanga, Kailicha to Menenberg to Hanover Park. You will find anything between 30 and 40 murders per month. But the prosecution rate, now my question is how your interaction with the police, and if it happens there, and should you be successful, how it's going to be, whether it's Motherwell, whether it's other places where it happens, Deep Sloot or Colorado, El Dorado Park. how is that going to happen? You do blame the issue about guns and so on, but it's the organized crime and so on that is there. So those are the issues that of concern, that that you have a province there. You say that you have good infrastructure, you've got good policies, you've got good programs and so on. Yet that issue about crime still is really, not. We don't see cases. Yes, I understand that the intimidation, and we need to look at the policy. And the minister spoke earlier sometime about how we, on the whistleblowers, but also the witnesses, because witnesses get gunned down. And the question is, how did the gun get into Wynberg Court?
Let's avoid too many multiple questions,
Please.
otherwise the candidate might battle to respond.
Thank you, Chair.
Please.
My apologies. Okay, I'll stop there.
Thank you, Minister. I've made notes. Let me start with gender-based violence and Mitchell's Plain being the highest, and how we're dealing with it and a plan for that. Yes, your stats is correct. We've also picked it up in our stats. The senior public prosecutor there was very concerned, also our stakeholders. They have developed an excellent pathway referral program, where if a victim of gender-based violence wants to withdraw a matter, she is counseled on where to find shelter, to make an informed decision, and what the impact of that withdrawal would be. It has shown excellent results, because it's not just the NPA working with the complainant, the victim, and you're right. Often it is because it is a family member who is responsible for the family. So it's although you're being abused, your income, your security, that of your family, you rely thereon. So that is why that referral pathway is important. So if you make that decision, you know the options that are available to you. There's counseling, you can replicate it throughout the province. The robbery, extortion. So if we address those 10 or 12 police stations, we will be addressing 72% of crime in the Western Cape. But that's not something in their work that they're doing. They're following intelligence on this, and I can't speak too much about it, but to bring stability to the province, to look at targeted interventions, to instill confidence. Because to prosecute, and to prosecute successfully, we need evidence. We need witnesses to come forward and to testify. Witnesses are scared. It's in all our reports why we cannot reach the conviction rate. And it happened at times that as soon as a witness has left the court, they're killed outside court. So it's difficult to prosecute those cases. It's heartbreaking for prosecutors as well. But do you force the witness and put their lives at risk? Or do you withdraw? Equal concern. But we found that with organized crime in the Western Cape, we have got most of the gang leaders on trial. But yet their reach is still out there. They're still benefiting. And we've cleared the vacuum for others. That's why there's fighting amongst for them to be up-and-coming gang leaders as well. The stabilization plan is designed to address this. Your top masterminds and also the runners who are doing the shooting to a province. So it's of great...
Currently, as acting leader of the Western Cape, what is your current... appointed. Apologies for that. As the appointed. Apologies for that. As the leader of NPA in the Western Cape, your current vision, if you can break that down for us, and then you said also, you know, you are at ease in court. That's where you're skilled. Now, I want to know how then would you manage a situation that just requires your understanding of what is happening in the courts, but your see of what is happening in the courts, but your skills would have to be in strategic leadership, in management, dispute resolution, problem solving, everything else, although understanding the court dynamics would help. And then the last part one, you mentioned the Jocelyn Smith case. And just now, you've actually, as you were responding to Mr. Nissen, you actually said people come forward, they get murdered sometimes after testifying. How then did we end up with a situation that from afar, for us as the public, was so sloppily handled? I'll tell you why I say so sloppily handled. I'll tell you why I say sloppily handled. There were parties of people going every month, Jocelyn's mother and others, to go and look for Jocelyn. What was the sanctioning around that? Where were the police around that? What was the role of the NPA to manage that process? Where did it end? You know, that kind of where did it end? You know, that kind of situation. More so that up to now, as far as I know, I'm open to correction, Jocelyn has still not been found, you know. So it was worrying. You also mentioned something about that people, you have not been referred in any way to the ethics office or ethics committee or found wanting in that regard. I just want to know if you have, throughout your career, have had experiences where there has been a team member who reports to you who has had ethical challenges, team member who reports to you who has had ethical challenges that you have had to deal with, or you know of and have had to give an opinion, and if so, how have you dealt with it? Thanks, Minister.
Okay, let's start with also a lot of questions, but with my vision for the Western Cape. My vision at the moment is to stabilize the Western Cape, to instill trust in victims, the public, that courts are safe spaces, that we still, despite the challenges, deliver an excellent service. For me, the biggest challenge is the backlog in cases. And that is also where we lose cases if a matter takes too long to be prosecuted. Memory fades. I have been advocating for a continuous role in the regional court, especially in sexual offences matters, where when the complainant, the victim testifies today, the matter is finalized at the end of the week. That you're not expected in 3 months' time, 4 months' time to be cross-examined on it. That's also where we lose cases, and it's unfair to victims and to family members and even the rights of the accused if matters take so long to be finalized. So reducing those backlogs, and that is also what the judicial officer, the regional court magistrate in charge of sexual offences, is working towards, to reduce that backlog so that witnesses testify, matter finish to end. My vision is to instill trust, to create a safer Western Cape where we can charge, deliver a speedy, just outcome to the community. And also based on principles and ethical decision-making, bringing matters to a finality. We live in a fast-paced era. People want answers almost immediately. We need to keep up with modern technology. What we've done in the Western Cape is We have moved to create a safer environment. We've moved towards virtual platforms, modernizing. We have, in dealing with our organized crime,